Take this. Now I gotta turn my back.
$3,200. That's what he gave me. $3,200 for a lifetime.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes. It's a rare double feature here with Joe Corrallo today. We got some more comic book news. There's some a movement called the Disney Must Pay movement. We got people like Neil Gaiman, Chuck Wendig, and others basically saying that when Disney has acquired some parent companies like Fox, Marvel, things of that nature, that they have not been honoring the royalty contracts that have been signed with creators beforehand. It sounds like a bad deal. And I imagine Joe Corrallo, being a comic book writer and editor, this is something that you're aware of. You know, it's within your circle. It's also something you're probably very interested to see get rectified.
Absolutely. I mean, and you know, this is a cautionary tale for everyone who's like, boy, I sure hope giant corporations buy everything, so it makes it easier for me to just access all of it. This was bound to happen. You know, when you're talking about books moving from one place to another, you know, all those, well, we're seeing it right now. Marvel is doing a lot of reprint. They've been not only reprinting the old Star Wars stuff in omnibus format and other formats, but they're doing that with Alien franchise books, Predator. You see, they mentioned
Conan,
this article. Yep,
Star
Conan.
Wars.
And there's going to be instances there of certain disputes potentially because of the issue with royalties. I mean, I believe, like in this CBR article, it says that Boom Studios, following the Disney Fox merger, told owed authors for reprinting the Buffy comics from Dark Horse that the royalties don't transfer. That's a problem.
That doesn't sound right, Joe. I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah.
I've never seen the contract, and I've never entered into one of these kind of negotiations. But it seems like once Disney acquires it, they acquire everything, including the responsibility to pay out, don't they?
Yeah, it would seem that way. Again, like without those contracts, and there's always a lot of nuance in these things. There's every contract's a little different, so we'd have to see. But certainly, there are people who would be annoyed that their original work, even though it was, you know, on a licensed property, that if they were owed royalties for X amount of sales, that they would expect, if that's reprinted somewhere else, that they still get those royalties if they meet the threshold to be entitled to those.
Yeah, because they're still making money off them. They're still printing them. It's still their original work. It's crazy. Obviously, Disney is a big corporation, and Disney has a wonderful public image. You know, Mickey Mouse, Disneyland. You know, it's the place where you want to take your kids and have the most amazing, you know, vacation ever. Disney Plus has a lot of kids content and stuff like that. But they're a pretty cutthroat company. I remember recently you and I were talking. Well, it wasn't just you. We were on the Comics Aficionados. It was kind of at the end of the last stream. We were kind of talking about the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And I know a lot of people come out and they're like, "Oh my goodness, you know, Disney. You know, I can't believe they would put something out like this. You know, the Isaiah Bradley story. You know, it's very courageous of them to put this material out. But you have, you know, it's not so fast. You know, there might be a little bit more corporate shenanigans going on there where they were kind of screwing somebody potentially out of some money.
Yeah, with you know, Bob Morella's you know, family and all of that. He's survived by his parents. You know, I mean, obviously it's none of our business whether they were compensated or not, but Disney usually makes some sort of, you know, acknowledgement of these things, or the creators or people do, and we haven't heard anything about that, or even, you know, from Kyle Baker, who also was involved in you know, that Captain America Truth story. What we do know is this was probably one of those instances where they would have sold more of that trade than they would have since it first came out, and they didn't bother to put it back in print. And
that
that's,
storyline was originally supposed to be in the Captain America movie series, right?
they were supposed to mention it, at least mention Isaiah Bradley, and they pulled it because they would have had to have paid Bob Morales according to his contract. And there's a lot of instances with Marvel contracts. Marvel going back, especially right now when we're looking at doing more stuff on TV and movies. Marvel, with now that Disney owns them, you do have instances where they're going back to some of these creators and wanting to renegotiate contracts, in their favor. And I get it, because it is also a two-way street in this instance, because it may be in their favor, but if you don't renegotiate, if you don't do these things, they're not going to put your character in the TV show or the movie, and then you're going to get no money. So it's like, do you renegotiate your contract so that way you might get less money than if your character appeared in the show now, or do you not, and then they don't put your character in the show because they have hundreds and hundreds of characters they could use instead anyway? So
it's crazy. We just saw the story about Ed Brubaker, and he was claiming that he made more money off a cameo than he's made off the royalties with Winter Soldier. Obviously, that was his original idea.
Yep.
It's his story arc. He wrote the whole damn thing. Disney has made a lot of money off of that story. Obviously, with the Captain America, Winter Soldier movie, we just had Falcon in the Winter Soldier, and I don't know. It's crazy, Joe. You would think these types of new ideas, you would be getting compensated so well because Disney is just raking in the money.
Oh, absolutely. You'd think that sort of stuff. What was it? Jim Starlin had said he made more money from KG Beast barely appearing in Batman v Superman than he did from all of the appearances of Thanos in the MCU movies.
So crazy.
It's crazy. So you do see, not to defend not paying these people or anything like that, but you can at least kind of make that argument of, well, they didn't sign a contract at the time when they created this character, in the 70s or the 80s or whatever, that we would pay them anything. So if we don't owe you money, we're not going to pay you. Like, you can understand that to an extent. Like, hey, it was a work for hire gig. You signed the contract. You didn't have to sign the contract. Like, people get that. This instance here, these are people who signed contracts that they were going to get paid, or at very least were going to get those royalty statements, and are not. So that's an even bigger problem.
And they have a lot of people in their that are supporting them: the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers of America, the Authors Guild, Horror Writers Association, National Writers Union, Novelists Incorporated, Romance Writers of America, the Sisters in Crime, all kind of come together to form this task force called the DisneyMustPay Joint Task Force.
Yeah,
it feels like those organizations might have a lot of pull. They probably have a lot of the scribes and writers, as part of their membership. But who's really are people going to be like, you know what? I'm not going to write your whatever script because you haven't paid out royalties, and I have to support the Horror Writers Association.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, with this kind of pressure, I do think, I'm optimistic that they'll get what they want out of this, or most of what they want. Because, and I'm not trying to say this in a degrading way or anything like that, but how much could they owe, a writer or an artist for reprints of a Buffy comic at Boom? Like, I don't see those selling a ton right now. Maybe that'll change when that new show, if that new show ends up coming out, they might get a big bump. And that's what you do these things for. You do these things to prep for hey, I want to make sure I'm all set, because when that happens, if there's a big bump and suddenly, this old material jumps up to a Amazon bestseller for a couple of weeks because the show's coming out, I want to make sure I'm taken care of. So I get that, and it is important. And you also want to have some level of faith from freelancers that you're going to be working with. There is that give and take. You want people writing for you to be confident that they'll get what they're owed. So I'm sure this is probably going to end up being something that Disney and all that does resolve. It needs that public pressure to hasten the situation, but I think they're going to want to be perceived as living up to the contracts that were signed, or at least renegotiating them with these authors. There might be little things that they need to renegotiate and be like, look, we're doing these new printings or whatever it is, so like, your royalties are going to be cut from, these printing and distribution costs and, administrative fees and stuff like that, and our payment structure is different, so we have to change how that's going to work for us. So yeah, it's complicated. It should hopefully be remedied soon, and then people like us, people who are tuned in enough on like comics and author Twitter or YouTube and all of that, we're aware of this, but the general population I don't think is as in tune, or quite frankly are as passionate about it. So that's why you need these sort of things to kind of take off with some bigger names that, like, oh, Neil Gaiman is I know who that is. Okay, they should do the right thing for Neil. Like, that's where these things help.
I'm tired of seeing, and I don't mean this as a disparagingly against the creators. I think I'm tired of seeing creators be like, listen, they just used my creation, I got no thank you. Listen, if you're not going to thank them, which I think is BS, you better at least pay them for using their ideas and honoring contracts, is the way I kind of feel about it. So yeah. I'm definitely on the side of the little guy here. Very rarely you're going to see me going, yes, I think Marvel's, I'm going to go with the big corporate structure, but definitely passionately on the side of the creators here. Do what's right. Sure. You got to honor the contracts, and those people put out good work, and they need to be honored for it. So
absolutely.
Joe, I got a comment in a recent video. I don't know if you want to talk about this. I don't even know what the hell they were saying. They said Joe Corrallo is a no person. What is a no person?
I think a no person is like the opposite of like a yes man.
Oh, like you're the guy you would never say yes to anything.
Yeah, so you have a no person there to be like, no.
That'll never work.
Yeah. So I think that's what that means.
Interesting. Let us know in the comment section. Is Joe a no person? I don't get that from you. I feel like Joe's a realist, more my kind of like me, but
yeah, no, maybe it's because I say
no,
yeah,
you said
no.
It again. You said no.
That might be it. But yeah, it's who can say? But yeah, I like to think I try to be grounded and realistic on these things. It's hard to I think be more grounded and realistic than I hope this all works out well for all the authors and everyone involved, and that these things are complicated and they might have to renegotiate contracts and stuff like that. Like, just being very realistic. I would be hard pressed if Disney would be able, or Boom or whoever would be like, oh yeah, sure, we'll pay you based on not our contract. Like that's a thing. So
absolutely. If you're with me and you think saying Joe Corrallo is a no person is completely BS, go in the comment section. Let us know your favorite Joe Corrallo moment right here on Thinking Critical, or maybe it was on Perch, and let everyone know that you love City of Bank. Or no, I'm sorry, City of Bruce.
Yeah, that's fine. It's gonna happen. gonna happen.
Joe, thank you so much for joining me. I think you guys are going to pressure DC into making City of Bruce one day. I do believe that in my heart. But do you have any last words to say about royalties and kind of the way Disney's kind of screwing some? It's perceived that Disney's kind of screwing some people over here.
Yeah, just creators always have someone else consult with you like a lawyer on a contract before you sign it, and always don't be afraid to ask questions. Always be like, hey, I saw this, can you explain this, can you explain that, can you get on a call with me and walk me through some of this stuff. If a publisher or whoever is serious about working with you, they'll want to do that. If they're like, I don't really have time and you got to sign this and we got to get going, that's a red flag. So make sure you understand what you're getting involved in. And yeah, I think that's a big thing. Make sure you know what you're signing.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.